With us from Fairbanks is Joe Miller. Joe, can you hear us all right?
I can, David. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on. So, first of all, I want you to be a reporter. What is the latest? Now, we know that you guys are separated by just a couple of thousand votes. It all depends on how those absentee ballots are reviewed. Who's going to review them, and could the old political machinery be in play?
Well, we're about 2% out, 1,700 votes or so. 100% of the precincts have reported. But like you noted, we've got a few thousand absentee ballots out there. We feel pretty good about those. A high percentage of those are military. We've done very well, of course, with the military, given the fact that I'm vet, obviously very supportive of veterans issues. But, we are concerned. We've got, I think, some gameplay going on here with the National Republican Senatorial Committee meddling in our primary election.
All right. Now, we should mention that it's sort of tradition where the Republican establishment or the Democratic establishment sticks up for the incumbent. So if there's any advantage to be had in these situations, it would be with the incumbent, in this case, your opponent, Lisa Murkowski, correct?
Right. She's gotten a lot of power from her incumbency, not just her dad's appointment, but also the funding of her race. But, frankly, we're looking right now to make sure that the election, that the votes are accounted for fairly without any type of gameplay. It concerns us any time that somebody lawyers up and tries to pull an Al Franken, if you will. We are very concerned that there may be some attempt here to skew the results, but frankly, again, we believe that the votes get counted, that there's not any gameplay, that we're going to come out where we're at now.
Joe, do you have any evidence? Have any of your folks seen anything suspicious so far?
No, and we'll deal with that as it arises. But again, lawyering up with a team of folk from the National Republican Senatorial Committee, it makes you scratch your head and ask, what's really going on here?
Do you have enough volunteers to follow what they are doing and to look over their shoulders if there's a recount?
I'll tell you, one of the things about this campaign, one of the reasons why we surprised so many people across the United States is that our volunteer network is second to none. So we've got people on the ground. Obviously, we aren't establishment connected or supported by the power elites in either in the Republican Party or elsewhere. But we still have very dedicated people, very bright people. We think people with more common sense, and they're able to look at these ballots. They're going to be sitting there helping us out. But obviously, we can use as much help as we can get, not just by the volunteer base, but also by funding. So we're up against a machine. Clearly, they're putting their pressure to bear. But I think we're going to prevail at the end.
Well, who do you count on, Joe, if the Republican National Committee is putting all their effort behind the incumbent, or at least leaning in that direction? Who's putting their weight behind you?
The Alaskan people. I mean, and that's what's always been behind us. That's why we pulled, the results that have so amazed people across the United States. It's the good, average, hardworking Alaskan that sees this country upside down, or at least getting that way. And I'll tell you, don't underestimate a hard-working, hardcore Alaskan, because I'll put them head-to-head with any lawyer from D.C.
God bless. Well, by the way, you are, as I mentioned, a veteran. You're a stand-up guy. Though, some people are looking at some of the candidates who run a great campaign in terms of being for small government, but once they get into power, and I'm thinking of a guy named Scott Brown, they kind of lose sight of some of those issues. Scott, for example, voted in favor of the financial regulation bill, which increases our government bureaucracy. How can the American public, and particularly voters in Alaska, have assurance that you wouldn't do the same?
Hey, I've stood up to the establishment before. I'm very concerned about the crisis of leadership in D.C. I'm very concerned about the crisis of leadership even in the establishment parts of this state. And I've demonstrated that courage in the past. Look, we're in a new political era, not just in Alaska, but nationwide, where it's very clear that the entitlement state is over. We're spinning ourselves toward bankruptcy. Alaskans, Americans as a whole, they know that there's a need to turn this nation around, and we're going to lead that movement. Alaska, I think, is going to be a catalyst to change this nation back, to increase power to the states and the people. We've got to get the broken federal government out of stuff. We need it to focus on the issues it needs to be focused on, the military, the borders, and getting its fiscal house in order.
And there's no question in your mind that you would have voted against the financial reg bill that Scott Brown voted in favor of.
Absolutely. No question about it.
All right.